Good evening and afternoon, Razorback fans. We are back with episode 60 of Hawgs on the Hill, your go-to Arkansas podcast for in-depth dive into all things Arkansas sports. And we are brought to you by our lovely sponsors over at Razor Pigs. Looking good never felt so fun. Razor Pigs is the Arkansas-born brand bringing serious style to the golf course, the tailgate, and everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Found it right here at home and now run by a Razorback-loving family, Razor Pigs. It's where comfort meets cool. So go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us and our friends over at Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. You can check them out today, and if you're in Northwest Arkansas, you can even check out the Core Brewery Tap Room located in Springdale, where you can check out Scarlet Letter and all its various flavors, as well as their new spiked teas that they have. So go check them out. And as you can tell, it's me and Austin today. Hobbs has got some Mother Nature storm issues happening in Mississippi, so no power for him. So it's going to be me and Austin leading the way tonight. So Austin, how's it going today?
So far so good. It's almost the weekend, and after that, it's just another Saturday until Arkansas football. So can't be too upset about that.
Right, we're 16 days away from kicking off this football season, and we're about to round out our previews, and we'll dive into our next position preview here in a little bit, where we're going to talk about these Arkansas defensive backs. But before we do, catch up on everything else going on in Razorback Nation. So we talked about it briefly last week. There hadn't been much notoriety or pushing out by the Arkansas media with it, but Saturday is Arkansas Fan Day. So they're trying to do a little bit to make up for, canceling the Arkansas spring game and the autograph session and everything that was supposed to be back in the spring. And so Saturday will be Arkansas Fan Day from 3 to 4:30. Doors will open at 2:45. It'll be at Razorback Stadium, free for all Razorback fans, free public parking, and several lots. You can go on and look up that and see where all. But fans will receive a free autograph poster upon arrival, which will be the only item the team will sign during their event. So don't try to bring footballs, anything else, because they won't let you take them in and have those signed. They're doing these posters. It says to expedite the autograph process. So,
yeah. It does seem a little bit, like you said, forced or last minute. And it only being an hour and a half kind of sucks too. But, I get it. These kids have lives and stuff, but at the same time, they get paid a crap ton of money nowadays. So might as well go in there and, sign a little bit more autographs, spend a little more time with the fans. But, I would still rather, instead of doing all this, I'd rather them open up this next scrimmage. That would be nice. Just open it up, do it in the stadium, and let people come and watch it. That would be fun. But no, this is what we get for this year, I guess.
Right. So it does seem like the bare minimum, but yeah. I mean, Transplant Texan says it right here. Non-university affiliated podcasts doing their part to publicize Saturday's Fan Day, doing more than I see the football program doing. Hey, we try here, exactly. Non-university affiliated, but we do our best to support the program. That's what this show is all about, talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks and supporting the program, the many programs, as the best we can. So, if you want to get out there and meet some of the players, put some names to faces, the guys that we've been talking about, you can get out there Saturday from 3 to 4:30 and kind of meet those guys and kind of put, like I said, those names to faces that we've been talking about over the past month and a half on these position previews. Other than kind of the guys, or the faces, if you will, your, Taylon Greens, your Xavier Stories, Braylon Russell, the guys that you kind of know who they are, but these other guys that, are going to be key pieces to this team, that maybe transfers in, freshmen or whatever it may be, you can get out and, get to meet them in person and talk to them a little bit, get some autographs and things like that. So it would be a good time. At least the university is doing something. And so, And then before you know it, like I said, 16 days away from Arkansas football. Arkansas soccer is currently in action tonight as they're taking on the number 13 Iowa Hawkeyes. They're down 2-0 at halftime, so maybe they can have a big second half push to come back and tie this game or potentially go for the win there. So they're in action. We'll keep you guys updated on that. In case you missed it last weekend, or maybe it was a couple weekends ago, the Arkansas's very own Jocelyn Robertson participated in the national gymnastics competition that was the U.S. National Championship, where she came in bronze all around and performed very well. As we know, this year she is taking a step back, not performing or competing for the University of Arkansas as she's training for, this national competition, things like that. So hopefully we see her back in 2027, whenever it may be. But congratulations to her for her performance out there. Fantastic stuff. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch. There's also clips that the gymnastics page posted, so you can check those out as well. But glad to see her doing things on the national stage and repping the Razorbacks on her leotard. Both that she wore, she had a Razorback bejeweled or bedazzled into it, and was repping her Arkansas gear on, I guess, what you would call the sidelines or the floor while she wasn't performing as well.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. Sucks she's not at competing for the Razorbacks, but that's the way the kind of the game is. Whenever you're that good, especially whenever it's a Olympic sport like that, you kind of need to do what's best for you to get to where you can perform at that level. And she's getting bronze on the national level. That's pretty insane. So, hey, whenever she comes back, she'll be welcomed with open arms, and that's just really neat for her.
Right, putting Arkansas on the national stage, not to mention already having the experience of being an alternate for the Olympics, this previous, Olympic team, and then fantastic stuff she's doing there. And it's weird, like gymnastics and I feel like track and field are a little bit weird like that, where it's almost like they can compete professionally, but it's not like they're losing any type of eligibility, if you know what I mean. They compete in all these different things like this, but it's not like kind of like the NBA, MLB or anything like that, where, well, now they're a pro and they lose eligibility. So, I mean, we kind of seen that path with Jordan Anthony, Arkansas speedy wide receiver that decided to, pursue professional track and field and, forego his eligibility and actually get paid and, make that his career instead of coming back to the football field.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. I doubt she's getting any money from doing the U.S. competition. It's probably something for quote unquote amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of the big difference. Jordan Anthony left, and he's going to go, and he can go and get sponsorships. He can go and get paid for competitions and stuff like that. Thing is, he's also pretty good. I don't know if you watched any of those races, but the dude is legitimately fast, and it kind of sucks that we didn't utilize him a little bit more last year, because he could have been a great deep threat. But it's kind of water under the bridge now. So, but congrats to him and congrats to Jocelyn, and
yeah, fantastic stuff. You love to see that. And I mean, Transplant Texan makes a good point here. He says the window for Olympic sports / nationals is limited. College competition will always be there to come back to. And that's a fair point. I mean, especially when you think Olympics, they only occur every so often. So you want to be able to train and be at the top of your game for these, whether it be Olympic trials, the actual Olympics, these national competitions. That way, you're in peak performing conditions whenever, those opportunities arise. And to the point, like Austin said, whenever she's ready to come back and compete in college gymnastics, Arkansas is going to be open to her returning and cheering her on again. So, Can't wait to see that. Transplant Texan also said, back to Arkansas Fan Day. If posters are limited and autographs are limited to the poster, will the fans be stopped when the posters run out? That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that because they mentioned no other items are allowed in and that the only thing getting signed is posters. So you would think posters are done. All right, turning people away. But, you'd also hate to do that. That wouldn't be a good look to just be like, sorry, we're out of posters. You can't come in and meet the players. So,
Yeah, I doubt they'll turn people away. They'll probably tell people they don't have any more posters.
yeah.
And they'll probably do like a meet and greet and like, hey, pretty much stand in a line to go shake their hand and take a picture, and that'll kind of be about it. It's almost like Comic-Con, but for Arkansas Razorbacks.
Hey, you even got mascots and people dressed up. So,
yeah. I imagine somebody's going to be there that's dressed like a Razorback. I mean, a fan dressed as a Razorback, because we have some crazy fans.
Yeah, that's true. Nisha says, referring to Jocelyn, she's trying to make the World's team in October. She'll be back competing for Arkansas in January for the NCAA season. Fantastic. Glad to hear that she'll be back. I enjoyed watching her this past season just as a true freshman, and all the work she's done. All this training she's doing for the World's team is only going to make her better. And I can't wait to see that jump from last year to this year. You even saw improvements if you watched the nationals competition that just took place. So, we'll see if she makes the World's team in October, and then when January comes around, gymnastics gets back. Hype man Corey's back. It's going to be a fun time to watch these gym backs again.
Exactly. We need to have him on again, because that was a surprisingly good interview. I'll be honest. I wasn't going into it like expecting a whole heck of a lot, but it was a really, really good one.
Yeah, we'll have to have him on kind of like we previewed football, kind of have him come on and let us know what to expect with this upcoming year's gymnastics squad. Like Transplant Texan said, Nisha coming in, resident gymnastics fan. I appreciate that. So with that, I don't have anything else. So we'll go ahead and dive into this week's position preview as we are looking at the defensive backs. We talked about it in the other two position groups. Defensive line, most questionable or position I think I'm most concerned with. The linebackers last week, the group that I think probably feel the most confident in terms of experience and going to be able to lead this defense. This week, we move to the defensive backs. I think this could be a key group that could, be a big part of making or breaking this Arkansas defense. I mean, if you look at the roster, great depth all around. If you look at it, probably out of these three position groups, probably one of the deeper ones out if you're on the defensive side of the ball. Kind of like I called the episode new pieces. You've got a lot of new guys, new faces that we reloaded from the portal as you lost several guys. Some due to eligibility. Shout out no Hud Island this year, no Hudson Clark, as he finally ran out of eligibility. New faces and a lot of experienced faces from across the SEC. Not only just transfers, but you have guys that have SEC experience. So, but that all starts with the top. Even with these new players and new faces, you have a new face in our secondary coach with a new coach that came in over the offseason, Coach Nick Perry. He joined the Arkansas as the secondaries coach. A little bit about him. In 2024, he spent time in Seattle with the Seahawks as a defensive assistant. Prior to that, he worked for 3 seasons for the Atlanta Falcons as an assistant wide receivers coach in 23, and then 2 years as an assistant defensive backs coach in 21 and 22. Prior to that, he was he played for the great Nick Saban. And looking at his playing experience, he played 2010 to 2014 for Alabama. Had a couple of stints with the different teams in the NFL, playing for the Baltimore Ravens in 2015, playing for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2016. And then that's when his coaching career began. 2017-18, went back to Alabama as a grad assistant for a season. And then from 2019 to 20 was a defensive analyst for Alabama. Then he made his jump to the NFL with the Atlanta Falcons as an assistant in the secondary for 21 to 22, and then 23 was assistant wide receivers, and then in 24, as I mentioned, with the Seattle Seahawks, was a defensive assistant. So a lot of experience around college and the NFL for Coach Nick Perry as he comes back to college for his true first, kind of, position coach, as he is the guy, and not kind of assistant or anything, analyst or anything like that. He is the secondary coach. So this group is going to be brought up by him. And so, what's your thoughts on, a guy like this that has the experience playing under Nick Saban, who's a defensive-minded coach? He's partial to secondary and defensive back, so that's his kind of bread and butter. Plays there, gets a couple of years experience in the league, goes back and coaches under Saban, helps out there, spends some time coaching in the NFL, and now he's back in the SEC at Arkansas taking over the secondary.
Yeah, the one thing he has really accomplished is the coach speak. That's for sure. He's so in that interview or that press conference with him, there wasn't a whole lot of like substance to come out of it, but you can tell he it's not a coaching tree necessarily, but whenever Alabama players talk, you can tell they played at Alabama. There's just something, there's a classiness to it, almost like a swagger to it. And he's I think he's genuinely excited to be here, genuinely excited to have this opportunity. And whenever you have guys who come in, that this is like their seventh, eighth stop somewhere, they don't necessarily have that excitement like he does. So I do like having a younger guy back there as well, because it just takes a special type of person to be a defensive back, and you kind of have to have an edge to you. And having a younger guy, I feel like that can usually keep up a little bit harder, or a little bit better, and then he can push a little harder with those guys and kind of resonate. I mean, like, you got to think about it from the kids too. This guy was in the league 9 years ago, so it's not like he doesn't know exactly what he's talking about. So they're more likely to listen and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think he's a good pick. I feel like Arkansas has kind of had some struggles there. I know the last two that left, they left for another job, but I think they were asked to leave. I'm not completely sure on that. I'm not. It's not like I have any intel or anything, but it just the way that it happened, I have a gut feeling that's the way it happened. So hopefully third time's the charm under Travis Williams, and they'll get a good one, or a one that fits the system and the culture and all that stuff as well. But yeah, I think it's a good hire. We'll see how it goes the rest of the season, though.
Here's one question for you. Not sure how much he had to say in the matter, but as far as terms of hiring Nick Perry, how much do you think it pains a guy like Travis Williams, being an Auburn Tiger, to now be working with a former Alabama Crimson Tide?
I don't think it probably pains him all that much, but I can imagine the dynamic in the office is a little bit fun. Because they've got to have some rivalry going on between the two, because that's a college football rivalry that is like ingrained in those players and in those fans. So even if you're not from the state, if you go to one of those schools, you're going to know about it and you're going to feel it like deep inside you. So yeah, I imagine that there's some stuff going on between them. And probably during the Iron Ball, they're obviously going to be focused on Arkansas and Missouri, but at the same time, they're probably going to have some kind of like side, bet. Hey, they win, you got to wear this, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's going to be any bad blood between them or anything like that.
So I looked it up. Fun fact: Travis Williams was a grad assistant at Auburn at the time Nick Perry was playing for Alabama.
Hey, that's cool.
So there's some overlap there between, when they were at their respective schools. So, yeah, like you said, though, at the end of the day, having a young guy come in, like you said, only in the NFL 9 years ago, brings that experience, knows what it takes. Like you said, you can tell he played at Alabama. His coach speak, probably what he learned from Saban and probably several of those other assistants at Alabama. But like you said, I think a bigger part of it is he's a younger guy, can relate well with these younger athletes nowadays. And so I'm excited to see what we see out of it, or what comes out of the secondary this season. Hopefully that's taking a step forward with all these new faces compared to last year, because at times, we really struggled. The biggest two that come to mind was Ole Miss and LSU last year. That was probably the two worst games from this secondary. So hopefully this year, better game plans. We've heard Pittman mention it numerous times, and other coaches over and over again, numerous articles about it, how the big thing this year with the secondary is they're significantly bigger than what they were last year. And I think that's going to hopefully make a difference, especially when you're playing in the conference like SEC and you have to go up against those tough, big SEC wide receivers. You need some size and some speed to go with that. So as we jump in, first guy we're going to talk about that's getting a lot of snaps is probably going to be more than likely your starting field safety, who is a transfer, Caleb Wooden. Ironically enough, transferred from Auburn. So, there we go with that Auburn-Alabama type relationship. A guy comes in from Auburn to play for an former Alabama player. So, but one of these guys I talked about has that SEC experience, at that level. So as a junior last season at Alabama or at Auburn, he's a senior. So, 1 year of eligibility here, 6'1", 195. Was a starter at free safety, played in 10 games, started 6 of those, had 17 total tackles on the season. Brings some size, some athleticism, that experience as a sophomore, played in 12 games at Auburn with 2 starts, had 15 tackles that season. In 2022, played in 6 games, 1 start as a true freshman, 9 total tackles. So progressively it has increased his production, year after year. So his, some personal about him. His brother Colby played at Auburn and was selected by the Green Bay Packers in the 4th round of the 2023 draft. So has some family in the league. But a guy that is competing for a starting spot in that safety position. And I think is going to be a big help to this team. The coaching staff has really liked what they've seen out of him. He's at the top of that depth chart of that position for a reason, brings that experience. Played against Arkansas last year, so now flip the script, if you will. And I'm excited to see what we get out of him this year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's someone that's kind of gone under the radar this spring and this offseason. You hear a lot about Julian Neal and then Connie Walker, and then obviously some returners like Larry Worth. But Caleb Wooden I think he's going to be a solid guy. I don't think he's going to be like all SEC, but he's going to be a really good player, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's like you said, having these guys that are, 6'1" and 195. And the thing is, he's kind of small compared to the rest of these guys. And you're playing at a position that usually these guys are, they say most of the time they say around 6 foot, but I can guarantee you they're fudging those numbers just a little bit. They're more like 5'10", 5'11", at the large end. And then 195 pushing 200, being the lightest guy, one of the lightest guys who's projected to start. That's insane. having that, and he's going to be a safety. He's not going to be a cornerback. So you got even bigger guys playing cornerback. But yeah, I think he's going to be if he doesn't start, which I think he's projected. If he doesn't start, he's going to be a really big part of the rotation, because usually you want to have some like between, I guess if you include the nickel in it, you're going to want like 4 or 5 guys to rotate between the free safety, the strong safety, and your nickel. So having that depth is incredible, and they really did do a number in the portal in getting guys that could really help with this quality depth.
Yeah, 100%. And it'll also depend on the packages too that we run.
Yeah.
On the number of DBs you have back there, and then what type of personnel are on the field and things like that. And we'll work through the secondary by kind of position group. Your field safety, boundary safety, your middle safety, that hog or nickel position, and go into the cornerbacks. And so kind of that 2-man behind Caleb Wooden this season is a returning Arkansas guy, Akari Johnson, a guy that is a sophomore for Arkansas, 5'11". That's what Austin was talking about, more guys that are this size, 5'11", 191 as a freshman for Arkansas, appeared in 10 games, 2 solo tackles, saw action in special teams in the Liberty Bowl. Another guy that this coaching staff's excited about. He is a first-year SEC academic honor roll this season, a 3-star prospect, recruit, a guy that is going to be 2 deep guy. So he's going to be a depth piece, going to be a guy that rotates in with this roster, and a great young solid guy to come in and learn from some experienced player like Caleb Wooden, that will honestly just make him better.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, I think he may be the lightest, the smallest person. There's Jaden Allen too, who's quite a bit smaller, but I don't know how much he's going to play this year. But yeah, it's just crazy that 191 is close to the bottom of the totem pole with weight. But yeah, Akari, I don't know if he's going to get a whole lot of playing time this year, just because there is so much depth. But we'll, if a couple injuries happen here or there, or someone doesn't pan out, heck yeah, I think he's going to be a solid guy, especially in the future. And like you said, he's got all these guys that are in front of him with a lot of playing time. All these guys that we're about to talk about, the starters or the projected starters, going to have a lot of playing time. They're all vets. So, yeah, that's going to be a great thing for him, especially in the last few years where they haven't had a whole lot of that. But more or less, I think it's going to be a learning experience. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of playing time. I think he'll probably do a lot of special teams again. So
yeah.
And you got to have good guys playing special teams, or you're going to have sucky special teams. So it's good for him. And then hope to see him a couple times on defense too, especially against like Alabama A&M, maybe Arkansas State, if we get ahead by quite a bit.
Exactly. A guy, like we said, with all these safeties that are very experienced, these guys will probably rotate through those safety positions. And like I said, depending on the personnel and what packages you have on the field, you might not have all 3 guys on at one time, and things like that. So that'll depend. Mm-hmm. But coming in at your 3 deep at your field safety position is a guy that brings some size, and that is redshirt sophomore Anton Pierce, 6'2", 216, out of Little Rock. He's a home state kid. Didn't play any last year, redshirted. A young guy that's trying to find some depth and some playing time here. Has great size for this defensive back room. And so we'll see if he makes the most of his opportunities. He's on that 3 deep, performing decent in camp. It's what's going to help you get up there. Kind of very similar to what we talked about with Akari, a good young player that is developing, and we'll more than likely see a lot of special teams usage, but maybe see him some back there in the defensive secondary as well.
Yeah, and he's a walk-on too, so he could trade that I guess the walk-on status, kind of like Hud Island. What's his name? Shoot,
Hudson Clark.
Harrison Clark. Gosh, completely blanked on it. He could be that next type of guy. I mean, that's exactly the same size that Hudson Clark was, 6'2", 205 ish, kind of around that range. But yeah, I like I said with Dakari, I don't see him playing a whole lot. But he may get on the special teams. We'll have to see. But like I said, he's a walk on. It's going to be an uphill battle, but he's definitely got the size for it.
Yeah. So as we jump over to that boundary safety spot, this is where you have that experience and SEC experience coming into a play. Again, a guy that we saw a handful of times last year after dealing with some injury issues earlier in the season. Miguel Mitchell, transfer from Florida, redshirt junior this season, 6'1", 222. So you're starting to see that size come into play here. As a junior last season, he appeared in 5 games, 2 starts after missing the front half of the season due to injury. So that's how, you kind of were able to see him get that red shirt by not getting to play that front half of the season. In just those 5 games, he added 20 tackles, including an assisted tackle for loss and an interception. So, the small sample size you got, you liked what you saw. And, this coaching staff has said that he's really primed for a big year this year and has really turned into one of the leaders on this defense. He's healthy, he's ready to go, and hopefully, 20 tackles and an interception in 5 games. Let's see what he does across a full season, 40 tackles, maybe 2-3 interceptions, and really kind of elevates this Arkansas secondary.
Yeah, and he's one that I was really upset about not being able to see last year. I was kind of excited at having him come out of Florida. He's got great size. I don't remember them being a whole lot of highlights, but the highlights that I did see, I liked. I thought he was going to be probably one of the better safeties we had last year, and it just, like you said, kind of ended up not working out for him with that injury and whatnot. And the thing is, he went in and he had that type of stat line in 5 games. That's pretty dang good, right? Especially coming off of an injury and all that junk. So I'm excited to see a completely healthy Miguel Mitchell go out there and start. I think that having those 2 guys back there at the safety positions, that's going to be really good. And I don't know if you talked about his height or weight or not, but 6'1", 222 pounds. He's the second heaviest of all these DBs that we're going to talk about, but that's huge. Yeah. 222 pounds. That's 15 pounds away from being a linebacker, basically. He's not too far away from it. So, and I feel like having those big guys like that is going to bring back an old school type of defense. We can talk about it in a minute, but I'm a little hesitant about the size because, they worked all off season keeping bulking up while trying to keep that speed. But whenever you get on the field, it's going to be a different type of speed, right?
Right.
You can hit, 21 miles per hour in a catapult, but whenever you get out there and you're facing SEC wide receivers, it may be a little bit harder to, navigate that. So I'm a little bit afraid about that. But if they can do well with that type of weight, dude, our run defense should be one of the best in the country.
Right. I mean, it's like you always hear them say, there's a difference between game speed and track speed. When you think of guys like this that, you're training, you're getting fast, but then game speed is a whole different thing. You're not running necessarily in a straight line. You're making cuts. You're having to jump, trying to make tackles, things like that. So it's a little bit different. But yeah,
right. And they train for that too. I'm not saying they don't, but at the same time, it's different going live than it is in practice. So
exactly,
let's just see how it works out. But dude, 222 pounds as a safety, that's insane.
Right. And quick look at his stats at Florida. So as a sophomore, he started at safety in 8 games, played in 11, finished with 37 tackles, 19 of those solo, 2 pass breakups and an interception. And then there's a true freshman, appeared in all 13 games and finished that season with 15 tackles and a forced fumble with a tackle for loss. So, that production's there, that talent's there. And now, he's redshirt junior, getting a starting nod. And I think is ready to make his mark here at Arkansas. So I'm excited to see what we're going to see out of Miguel Mitchell this season. As we continue on at that boundary safety spot, kind of your two deep, your next man there is a guy that did really well at where he came from. Quintavious Scandrett. You got to love that name for a football player. Senior, transferred in from Eastern Michigan, 6'3", 210. So, got the height, not as heavy as Miguel Mitchell. As a senior at Eastern Michigan, was preseason All-MAC first-team defense. He appeared in all 12 games for Eastern Michigan, and finishing the season with 55 total tackles, 1 interception, 1 quarterback hurry, and 3 pass breakups. He did notch a season-high 10 tackles against Akron. And so this is kind of where that conversation comes in, like we talked about with some of these other positions and transfers. Fantastic numbers at that level. Eastern Michigan, SEC ball, very much different. So can he translate that? But, I mean, if you look at his numbers, look at his size, and what he's been doing in camp, I mean, you can't help but be excited to see what a guy like this can do.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. I think this pairing up between Miguel Mitchell and Scandrett is a little bit closer of a battle than it is with Wooden and Johnson. I think probably Quintavious has an opportunity to get a lot of playing time this year. I mean, with that size and that stat line, I know it's the MAC, right? That's where Eastern Michigan. I know it's the MAC, but at the same time, you have players that come out of that and go to SEC schools and do well. So I'm not completely against it. Cautiously optimistic about it, but I do think that he can probably push Miguel Mitchell for playing time or rotate throughout the secondary, because these guys are going to get cross trained and they're going to be able to do more than one thing.
Exactly. And, that's going to be fun to see. It's like we said, kind of iron sharpens iron, if you will. And so, if the guy like Scandrett is pushing Miguel Mitchell, I feel like both those guys are going to get better. And so, that could be, like Austin said, I would expect Scandrett to get a lot of playing time this year, not only as a rotational piece, but he continues to push in fall camp as we get ready for the final scrimmage coming up. That would be a position to keep your eye on. Kind of rounding out that 3 deep at the boundary safety. This guy that's kind of hybrid, playing 2 positions. We talked about him last week. J.J. Shelton listed as a linebacker on the roster, but is also kind of getting some playing time over in the secondary as well. 6'1", 197, 3-star prospect. Like we said, listed as a linebacker, probably played a little bit of DB in high school, and so he's getting some work with the DBs, kind of cross-trained, if you will. Not a bad thing, but not a guy I expect to see a ton of playing time in the secondary or even in the linebacker room either. But a good young guy that's getting some experience, kind of, getting trained and experience at multiple positions, can only help him as he continues to grow as a player. So,
yeah, and the thing about that is having a guy that size with that kind of background, perfect, position in my mind is the nickel, right? And they may be, prepping him to be that next hog or nickel, whatever you want to call it, position. So, yeah, I think it's good to get him out there and playing safety like that, to be able to turn this guy into the next defensive utility player that we have.
Yeah. Transplant Texan said, and I think this hits a lot, is, he said that can be asked of many of transfers with stats, playing time at their previous school. Will their talent translate to SC? And I mean, it's always a gamble when you bring up a guy from a smaller school. I mean, it's almost like I think I heard it quoted, Pittman's kind of going for the money ball approach. If you think about how he kind of goes after some players, goes after some transfers, some bigger schools, some SEC schools like we talked about, but also then goes after and gets these guys from smaller schools that had great stats. Maybe they were overlooked coming out of high school, or maybe they went to JUCO route or these smaller schools where they got to get playing time as a freshman and a sophomore and develop their skills that way, and then could transfer up to a bigger school and not have to kind of ride the bench and develop in practice, if you will, and then be called upon to start or get optimal playing time. And I think you see a lot of that with college baseball, but I think you're probably going to start seeing a lot of that with college football as well, with some of these new rule changes that could potentially affect guys that are coming from JUCO or smaller schools where they could get extra eligibility. But that's something I think you're going to continue to see more of is, these guys are going to go to maybe a smaller school, play right away, get to develop, and then transfer in to, an SEC school, a bigger school, and be more ready to play, ready to contribute right away.
Right. Exactly. It's they're almost looked like as farm leagues now. I think I've talked about it more than once. So it's not a surprise that he's kind of going this route, to be honest, especially, with the question marks around NIL and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's probably one of the best bets because you look at the last few years, some of the best transfers that we've had have been guys from different levels of football. So it's not like these guys are going to come in here and automatically, just not do good or automatically be great. It's kind of a crapshoot. I think Arkansas has hit on it more than they've not. So that's a good thing. But yeah, it is a gamble.
Yeah. And it's like Transplant Texas said, Pittman has made a big gamble with this large transfer class that he pulled in this year. You kind of had to get a large transfer class with the amount of players you lost. But at the end of the day, who knows how many of these guys could turn out to be kind of a diamond in the rough that you find that maybe he was overlooked, things like that. And so it's going to be interesting to see. Angel says, what's good news? Arkansas's deep in the secondary.
Football's almost here.
Football's almost here. Arkansas's deep in the secondary as we're going through this. So, yeah, as we continue on, we move to the middle safety spot. That's really only got one guy because, depending on packages, how often are you going to have and run a middle safety necessarily? But this guy is one that I'm excited about. We were talking about size a while ago with a guy like Miguel Mitchell, but Larry Worth III, you talk about size, 6'4", 226, senior. The coaching staff talked about they really love the athleticism and the talent of this guy, but they had to just find the right position for him. He's a little bit on the taller side for like a linebacker. As we mentioned, on the heavier side to necessarily be a true DB. And then where does that leave you? At the safety spot, where he's not necessarily having to run with guys every single play, but also is a guy that has great size in that back end and can, lay the boom on somebody if needed. I mean, he saw action in all 13 games last year as a junior, made 5 starts, registered 54 tackles, 20 solo tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, half a sack, broke up 2 passes, forced a fumble. And so, exactly, Angel has the right word here. So I'm calling him a hybrid. He is a hybrid player. If you need to, he's a guy, throw him in at linebacker if you need some depth at linebacker because he's got the size, he can do that. Throw him in the defensive back, in the safety. He's a hybrid player with his size and body type and skill set. You can probably see him all over the field.
Yeah, so let's be clear. This guy is going to start somewhere on this defense. I mean, he's going to be probably.
You don't put up 54 tackles last year and then not start this year.
Right. I mean, the thing is, they talked about his numbers, right? Everything that comes out of camp, they talk about his speed, his strength, his jumping, his length, his size, all of this stuff. And they're like, if you look at one guy on um, this defensive back position group and think which one of these guys is going to go to the league, just by the size and the numbers, you probably are going to look at Larry Worth, right? Um, but he no, well, like I said, he's going to play somewhere. He may be a guy who rotates a lot and starts at safety and then moves down to play nickel. Or whenever they go into like a heavy set defense, he may go down and play nickel anyway because he, like you said, he's 226, 6'4", 226. And the thing is, if he had probably 10 more pounds on him, he probably would be a linebacker. He wouldn't be playing safety most likely. And that's, I mean, you said it's a little bit tall for a linebacker, but what's his name? Why did I forget? Drew Sanders was 6'5", so let's not forget about that. But yeah, he's I think he's going to be a really good part of this defensive room. I'm a little bit worried again with the weight and all that stuff, and but I think he wasn't much smaller than what he is now. So I think another year under this under this Travis Williams defense, I think he's going to do fine, and I think he's going to be. He could probably be an SEC, all SEC caliber type player.
Yeah. Angel says a Steve Atwater type player. I agree. You know, he brings that same mentality type player. But yeah, a guy that you think about some of those aggressive packages like Travis Williams likes to run and you're blitzing a safety or something. You know,
right.
You have a safety that's 6'4", 226 coming at you. Good luck. I mean, that's all you got to say right there.
So, right. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Well, the thing is, he's a little bit heavier than Atwater. Atwater was 218, and then Larry Worth is 226. So he's got a little bit more oomph to behind him too. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier. They have like an old school type of defensive back room. And I just hope it doesn't bite them in the butt whenever it comes to like playing teams that are pass happy. If they can keep that speed and that agility, then that's just even better. And I think if Arkansas can get some pretty good depth up in the defensive line or work out a little bit more talent at defensive tackle, Arkansas probably will have, I don't know, that's kind of a hot take, but a top 5 run defense in the SEC. That's a hot take. I'll be honest, but with the size of that defensive back room, I don't feel like anybody should be running on Arkansas.
Hey, that's a fair point, and it'll be true to see. And Angel says we're deep at linebackers, 100%. We talked about it last week. Go back and check that out if you missed it. But we went through the depth that we have there. Transplant Texan brings up a good point, and he said, and kind of off your point, he said Arkansas and our NL funds or lack thereof will cause continued reliance on the quote-unquote farm team prospects from FCS or redshirt bench players from other FBS schools. No money to get those or keep the top-tier guys. I mean, that's what you're seeing. You see Arkansas's top-tier guys leave. Arkansas goes after maybe some of those smaller schools, again, that money ball approach. And, you're getting quantity and then hoping you strike quality as well.
Right. And, I mean, a lot of these people that leave, let's be honest, we had more this year than the last few years. But most of the people that leave are going to be those depth type of people. So you're kind of just replacing what you lost and having guys come out of, farm league type schools. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, you want to go in there and grab some guys that you need to grab, right? For instance, that kid out of Georgia, the defensive tackle. Look where we are now with defensive tackles. Not very deep at all. So that was a huge miss. And that's kind of where it's going to come back and bite Arkansas in the butt is whenever they need to make those big time offers, those big time gets, and they miss them. Having all these extra guys come in, I don't think that's as big of an issue. It's just the top like one or two quality guys that you need for starting positions. That's where they're going to mess up.
Right. And so Hog Fan 40 ounce jumps in here and says, I think this team should be pretty good. I'm excited to see them. I kind of feel that way too. As we've gone through these week by week previews and we've talked about it, I'm a little bit more optimistic than maybe I was coming into this season, with learning more about this team, the depth of some of these positions. And so, it's going to be fun. Like Angel says, fun season ahead, but it's going to be tough. He says, will we see an exodus again? I think that depends on the result of the season as part of it. So,
that just means you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Right.
Caleb. Yeah, it's okay. I'm drinking it too.
I think we all do at some point, especially the closer it gets. We're just ready for it to get here. So we're like, oh, yes, let's go, that type of thing. Transplant Text said transfers increased each year under Pittman. Campbell stayed, but T. Will all said because he was willing to take the in-state discount. I
think it was more than just the in-state discount. I mean, the guy was getting offers for huge bags to go play somewhere else. I think Campbell genuinely wanted to play here. But at the same time, the increase in transfers is happening all over the country. I think it was a little bit out of whack that they had so many last year. But at the same time, it was a little bit different situation. You didn't really have fan support. You had a disappointing season, and it's not because they go out and they get 6 wins and they go in and win a bowl game, so they're now 6-7-6. Winning record, blah blah blah, that and the other. That's mediocre, but that's not why people were mad. People saw what Arkansas had on the field last year, right? We saw that Taylor Green showed incredible flashes of greatness. We had chances, or the football team had chances to win a lot of games, and they shot themselves in the foot a lot. And it's one
the
thing
crazy stat under Pittman too. You talk about those flashes and chances to win games. In Pittman's entire tenure at Arkansas, it's insane the amount of one-score games Arkansas has been in and hasn't been able to finish.
Right. And I think this year, as long as the defensive line can hold up in those type of situations, which that's a big if. If Arkansas can actually do something in the red zone, I think you'll win a lot more of those one-score games.
Yeah,
I just do. We'll have to see if that can happen. The trenches are incredibly.
Yeah, as I was about to say, it's like they say, the proof's in the pudding. So, we'll see it when it actually comes down to it.
Exactly. There's not much more you can say about that. We can speculate all day on it, but they've got to go out there and, prove to us that they deserve to, have a little bit more support, if that makes sense. Or not support, but what's the word? Excitement, I guess.
Yeah.
Not you and me, we're going to have excitement because our entire, mental state is around sports. So obviously you're going to get excited. I'm going to get excited because I love the game of football, and it doesn't matter if they go 0-12 or 12-0. I'm going to have at least a good time watching football.
Well, and don't get us wrong. We, as much as we love this, yes, we'll still get on here, be frustrated, say we should have done this, should have done that, X, Y, Z. But, Austin's point, at the end of the day, a lot of our mental state still comes back to, the Razorbacks. So with that, we'll continue on through the secondary. We'll move over to the hog or the nickel spot, where your guy that's probably going to see a lot of starts there is redshirt senior transfer from Cincinnati is Jordan Young, 6 foot 198. He appeared in 12 games as a redshirt junior at Cincinnati, logged 35 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 5 pass breakups. He had a season-high 5 tackles on 3 separate occasions. As a redshirt sophomore at Cincinnati, recorded 34 tackles, 1 interception, 7 pass breakups, and played in all 12 games there and started in 11 at cornerback. Previous to Cincinnati, what do we have here? SEC experience as a redshirt freshman, played at Florida in 2022. Tallied 10 tackles, 1 pass breakup, and 1 blocked kick in 10 games. So he was a 4-star national recruit, consensus top 30 national quarterback out of high school. So a really talented player. Played some in the SEC, went over to Cincinnati, played with Cincinnati, and now he's back in the SEC at Arkansas, getting ready to make a start here at that nickel spot. Great combination of size, and I'm excited to see what a guy of his caliber with that experience can bring to kind of that hog nickel spot.
Yeah, I think this was a sneaky good pick too. Anytime you can go out there and you can find these guys who started at SEC schools, usually it's because there was a little bit of immaturity there going on. I mean, I think we kind of talked about it with Jaylen Brown and how he's kind of bounced around a couple places and all D1 schools. So it's not exactly apples to apples comparison,
Right.
but at the same time, you see these guys that need a little bit growing up to do. Not just physically, but mentally and how they go about the game and actually taking it as a job instead of a hobby like you do in high school. And I'm not saying that's with Jordan Young. I don't know his case, but oftentimes when you see things like this, it's not that they don't have talent. It's just they haven't been able to do it on the field like they should be. I think Arkansas has done a really good job at giving these guys second chances. So I think Jordan Young is probably going to be one of those guys that gets a lot of playing time, not necessarily starting, but I think he's blah. I am all kinds of messed up with my words today. He's a redshirt senior, so he's obviously got all of that experience too. And you got to think about it, Cincinnati. That's a Big 12 school now. That ain't, what were they in the American Conference or
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so they're no longer there. They're over there playing with the.
They're the big boys now. What you want to call the big boys, but
they're like the second to youngest little brother of the big boys. ACC is the little one, but they're the run of the litter. Big 12 right ahead of them, but not nearly where SEC and Big 10 are. Right. Still, I mean that's a good school. That's a good program, and it's in a decent conference. So it's not like you're getting these guys from the directional school out of D2 somewhere. So I think he's going to be a good part of this defense, at least in a depth position.
Yeah. Coming in behind him at that 2 deep spot is another one of those transfers. A lot of transfers on defense that we're talking about is Shakur Smalls, transferred in from Maine as a redshirt senior this year, 6'2", 209. Appeared in 11 games last season with 43 tackles, ranking 5th for the Black Bears. He opened the season with 4 tackles against Colgate, and so recorded 7 tackles at Oklahoma. So against SEC team, we saw him contribute there. But another guy that could be a key rotational piece, 6'2", 209, good size there at that hog nickel spot. And a good piece to pair up with a guy like Jordan Young.
Yeah, and he's someone that I'm a little bit, I don't want to say confused on, because I don't know how well he's going to do, but I just have a feeling that he's going to do pretty well. Right. I think, maybe 1 week Young isn't doing as good in practice, and they put Smalls in above him in the depth chart. I think there's going to be a really, really good competition right there. You got a lot of old guys, like they're both redshirt seniors. So, and they're both, pretty much the same size. Shakur Smalls is about 10, yeah, about 11 pounds bigger. So, yeah, I feel like that's going to be really, really good competition. And that's what you need. That's what Arkansas safety and DBs need the most. Like I said earlier in the podcast, you got to come into that group and have that kind of attitude. And you can't really have that attitude by yourself. If you're the best guy on the team, then you kind of you're kind of too big for your britches, and you don't really think you need to work a little bit harder. But having all those guys around you that are kind of like throwing it in your face that they're beating you, I mean, it really makes you want to work harder.
Right.
And it's not out of hate; it's all out of love. These guys are, just like bros.
They're pushing each other.
Picking
Yeah.
each other. Yeah. So it's like every other position, only more so, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say I'm excited to see how that battle works out.
Yeah, I was about to say I hope the one phrase we don't find ourselves saying this season is "You're killing me, Smalls." So I had to. It was set up perfectly there, Austin. But really,
the first time someone gets a touchdown on him, I'm posting that. I'm stealing that from you.
There you go. Rounding out that 3 deep at that nickel spot is another guy that we kind of see at the playing a hybrid type player. Cade Fields listed as linebacker. We talked about him last week. Cade Fields, redshirt junior, 206, 6'1", transferred in from Arkansas Tech, so getting some work over there. Like we talked about, probably won't see a ton of action with the depth that we have at linebacker, but can come in, cross-train a little bit, get some playing time and experience at the nickel spot in practice, and be a depth piece. Angel says, was that a Tupac reference? No, that was a Sandlot reference.
Yeah. Tupac Shakur, yeah, you killed me, Smalls. Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with his name. That's
right.
Nice.
Anyway, back to Cade Fields.
I was trying to remember who you said after that comment. I was like, wait, who are we talking about again? Cade Fields. Yeah.
Similar to J.J. Shelton that we talked about, listed as a different position, but is kind of playing that hybrid role or that cross positional type player.
Yeah, and he's also, I'm pretty sure he's a walk-on. I don't think he's I don't know if he got a scholarship or not.
That would sound right. He's a guy that is from the Fayetteville area, played for Casey Dick at Fayetteville High School, right. So played for the former Razorback, and so decided to spent 2 seasons at Arkansas Tech, and then wanted to come back to up closer to home.
Yeah, and I love seeing guys like that fight for the bottom parts of those depth charts, because and some people might think, oh, well, that means the people that they're fighting against suck, and I'm like, well, not necessarily. That just means, in my opinion, that usually means that you've got a little bit more depth and you got some quality practice squad guys. So having him there and showing, like, I'm guessing you're reading off of the practice depth charts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, seeing him up there and doing that, I really do like seeing guys like that out there, because all they're gonna do is push. Because what's that movie? Greater? The one about Brandon Burlsworth?
Yes.
Whenever that dude got his butt kicked by Brandon Burlsworth, what was he was embarrassed, right? And it made him better as a offensive lineman.
Well,
too.
and then he had that quote where he said that guy, one of his teammates was like, "You just got beat by a walk on," and he was like, "That's no walk on."
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a little bit of a pride thing too, right? You don't want to get beat by them, so they're obviously going to go out and try to get better. And having that competition, that means that this defensive back room is working.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's going to be fun to see these guys compete, push each other, and see what type of playing time these guys get. And as we continue on to the cornerback spot, penciled in there in the starting role, we saw him last year Has that SEC experience, some good size, is Jaheim Singletary. Redshirt junior. He's a junior, redshirt junior this year, 6'2", 201. A guy that, for me, hasn't really lived up to the hype of what he was expected to be. If you think about that, you look at him coming out of high school, played in the 2022 Under Armour All-American game, 4-star prospect, number 8 cornerback nationally, commits to Georgia, red shirts, played in 3 games, at your typical redshirt type of season. As a redshirt freshman, played 10 games and 4 starts. After he transferred to Arkansas as a redshirt freshman, had 4 starts, 17 tackles, half tackle for loss, 4 pass breakups. Then last year's a redshirt sophomore, played in 10 games, made 6 starts, total 25 total tackles, had an interception and 2 pass breakups, but his coverage was questionable at times last year. And he's a guy that you clearly, from his background and things like that, can tell he's a really talented guy. Obviously he was talented enough that he was high-rated prospect, got recruited by Kirby Smart in that Georgia team, and kind of has really been just, everybody's been waiting for him to make his mark, ready for him to kind of break out, if you will. And now he's a little bit older, redshirt junior. Can we kind of see that development and that next step forward this year out of a guy like Jaheim Singletary?
Yeah, so I think you read off of 24/7 Sports. They were quite a lower on their rating for him. Across the board, everywhere else, he was a 5-star. I think Rivals had him as the number 10 player in the country in his class. So yeah, I'm with you there too. If not more so, then I'm just like, where has that hype? Where does it lead to? And right now, it hasn't led to much. He's kind of gotten beat quite a bit at that corner position and hasn't really, just like you said, just hadn't lived up to the hype. And I'm hoping this last year is going to be able to at least, push him a little bit. I think he's got a little bit more competition than what he had in the last few years. Think about last year. It was him and Jalen Braxton, really. I mean, Selvin Bridges really didn't.
Well, not even necessarily Jalen Braxton, because he was out.
He was hurt.
The season,
right.
And so, yeah, when you look at the guys last season, it was very much by committee last year. But as far as true competition, there wasn't really anybody to kind of push him, if you will, like we talked about with some of these other positions that you're seeing that kind of across the board here.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about it. They're pretty deep, and they've got a lot of size and a lot of length, and he's going to have to, put up or shut up, or he's not going to play nearly as much. And, having that kind of pedigree coming out of high school, it's just kind of like, this is your moment, right? I think, who was it? Sam Pittman said that about Wyatt
Simmons.
When we talked about linebackers last time. That's exactly what's going to happen with Jaheim Singletary here. And you don't just get those 5 stars for nothing either.
Right. So, yeah. Those aren't just handed out like, pieces of chocolate. So,
right.
So, Angel has a good point. Part of it, defense was stressed last season because of offensive turnovers. So if this year our offense can keep the defense off the field more, it could be beneficial. I agree 100%. But, as we were talking about it, you look at the depth behind a guy like Jaheim Singletary, players that can push the other ones is, a guy coming in that's another transfer from community college, a kind of a farm system, if you will, is guy Keyshawn Davila, 6'1" junior, 165 out of Northwest Mississippi Community College, 4-star junior college prospect, according to On3, 3-star by 24/7 Sports. He was the number 1 junior college cornerback, number 2 overall junior college prospect. So, had high ratings coming out of junior college. And then so as a sophomore at Northwest Mississippi Community College, he collected 23 tackles, had 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, and helped lead Northwest Mississippi Community College to a 10-1 record and a playoff appearance in the NJCAA Division I. So,
yeah. And this is more or less what you think of corners, right? 6'1", 165. But it's not like he's not going to be able to play with these dudes.
right.
He's one of the names that comes up a lot. A lot of it has to do with the discrepancy in size between all of them, but he does come up quite a bit as someone who's at least getting reps and getting a lot of playing time in camp. So I expect to see him quite a bit. He's a junior, so he'll probably be here for another year unless he transfers, which that's a very big possibility.
Well, also with the pending ruling of all that stuff, coming from a community college, could have extra eligibility as well.
True. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think he, with the numbers he put up, I think he can be pretty solid. I think he probably does need to gain about 10 pounds, 15 pounds in muscle just to stay up with these, really physical SEC wide receivers.
Right. And I know this is a guy that in the offseason when we got him, the coaching staff was excited, like we said, was rated pretty high coming out of JUCO. So to Arkansas to get him, can you translate to that next level like we mentioned before? Good point by Transplant Texan here. He in talking about what we said from Angel is the offense can't just eat time off the clock in order to keep the defense off field, but you've got to be able to reward that eating the clock with some points, which in turn helps your defense as well. So that's going to be big.
Yeah, I don't know how much they're going to eat off the clock this year.
I was about to say, with our high flying, potential quick strike kind of attacks that we could have, then yeah.
Yeah. So, I think they can if they need to, but I don't know how much they're going to do.
Right.
But they need to try and keep that defense off as much as possible, especially if they're going to go with this, uber aggressive and, blitz happy defense like we think they're going to do. They're going to get pretty tired pretty quick, especially on that defensive line. So,
yeah. Rounding out that 3 deep at that left cornerback position is true freshman Nigel Pringle, 6'2", 177, out of Houston, Texas. Consensus 3-star prospect according to the all the recruiting services. Was ranked the number 91 athlete in the class of 2025. Chose Arkansas over Arizona State, Houston, Kansas, Memphis, Oregon, Central Florida, Washington State, other schools. But, a guy that, for him to be in this 3 deep, getting the reps in practice as a true freshman, I think it shows you there's some talent there. And that, I think he's going to be a guy that you, like we said with some of these other guys, might see some reps in Alabama A&M, Arkansas State, some of those type of games. But maybe not necessarily a ton of action. And, once you kind of get into the middle of the season and through into SEC play.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see him playing a whole lot. He is a little bit on the smaller side too, 177. 6'2" though. That's some really, really good length to have as a corner. But yeah, he could definitely. I think he'll definitely help in the practice squad, and I think maybe get him on special teams if he's actually doing pretty good. You would hate to burn a red shirt just by doing special teams like that, but if that's what they need, that's what they need. So
right.
I think, like you said, he was a pretty highly rated dude. I think he's still a 3-star, but as an athlete, you come in there, that means you can do whatever you want with him. You can mold him however you want, put him where he's best fit. So yeah, right. I think he's very promising.
Yeah. And as we jump over to the right side, as we kind of get ready to wrap this position preview up, in the right cornerback slot, slotted in at that kind of starting role, another transfer that is coming from SEC experience, Connie Walker. Redshirt senior, 6'2", 204, transferred in from Oklahoma as a redshirt junior last season. Played in 11 games, 9 starts, first 8 games of the season. He matched his career best with 24 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, and a career high 6 pass breakups. And as a redshirt sophomore, Started 3 games, played in 10 total, 24 tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 4 pass breakups. Played in 6 games as a redshirt freshman. Limited stats there, and was actually his true freshman year spent at Louisville, where he played in 4 games, 3-star recruit. But a guy that brings that SC experience. First personal fact, first name pronounced Kunai.
Man, that's gonna be hard to remember.
Kuh-Nye. Or Cooney.
Interesting. But yeah, no, I'm there with you. I think he was a little bit under because he was part of that big group that came. That kid from Maine. So Curve Smalls, Connie Walker, and then Julian Neal were all in that little group that came committed around the same time. So there was a little bit I guess overlooking him because you had that kind of one of the prize picks out of the portal and Julian Neal kind of overshadow his commitment. I think Connie Walker could probably do really good this season. I don't know if he'll start. I think that's what they have listed on that depth chart. I don't know if that's going to be the case.
I was about to, and we got to take it here. We haven't necessarily talked about Julian Neal. We will. But he came in a little bit later, so that's something to consider here too. So, but back to Cooney Walker,
yes, and I think that's kind of why we haven't seen a whole lot of it, like the hype out of spring practice in the summer and stuff like that. But I think that he can really do well with this team. He's got the size and he's got that, like you said, the SEC experience. Now let's be clear. Oklahoma was bad last year, right? But their defense was borderline elite. They were really, really, really good on defense. Running, passing, didn't matter. They were going to stop you. So I think having a guy like that come over here, and I don't think he started at Oklahoma, but he played a lot.
Yeah,
at least. And you can't play on a team like that or a defense like that, at least, without being pretty good. So having him coming over to another red team and white team, I think he's probably going to feel right at home with us. So I think he'll just hit the ground running.
There you go. Following him up at that 2 deep at that right cornerback is a guy that I'm excited. When we got him, very highly rated prospect. Thought he was leaving last year, decided to come back. Selman Bridges, true sophomore, 6'2", 185 out of Texas. Saw action in 7 games last year, registered a pass breakup, started in the Liberty Bowl. He is a 4-star prospect, according to 24/7 Sports, Rivals, ESPN. Chose Arkansas over Alabama, Arizona State. That list that we talked about at all these big schools, LSU, Miami, Ole Miss, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, A&M, all these bigger schools. Pittman secured that commitment there, got him in here. And now I think this year he has a chance to be, a key piece for this defense. Yes, he's on the 2 deep right now and kind of not slated to start, but over time and as the season goes, these guys develop with the playing time. And I think that he has the chance to be a big contributor on this defense.
Yeah, I do too. And he did have some pretty awful times last year. There was a few times where it's just like, what are you doing, bro? But he, like you said, he was a true freshman, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So you put a true freshman out there, you're going to have problems. I mean, look at what C.J. Brown did against Texas, right? Put the ball in his hands, crunch time, goes out there, and he fumbles. That's going to happen with these guys that are freshmen. It just is. I'm hoping he can do a little bit better this year. I improve a little bit. I think having this competition, like I said, is going to do well. I am surprised that Connie Walker is starting over him in a lot of these reps. But I don't think that's going to cause him to, slide down the depth chart as
Right.
much. So I think he can also play both corners. Like if they just need someone else to go out there, I think he'll do fine. Um, but yeah, I got a lot of hope for him. Like you said, he's 6'2". He's got good size. He's got good length. You don't see a lot of that at corner, and Arkansas's got a lot of it. So yeah, I got some good hopes for him this year.
100%. And I think that's the thing you're going to see. Yes, freshmen make their mistakes, but as they grow and learn, Cut gets another off season, another spring, summer into the fall, gets to learn and have the experience from these older guys here. Can be nothing but beneficial for a guy like Selman Bridges. Round out that 3 deep, a guy that I think you're probably gonna see bumped down with Julian Neal being a late addition and things like that. But listed right now, Landon Phipps, redshirt junior, 6'1", 188 out of Springdale. Redshirted his freshman year, didn't play last year. Saw only game action in the Texas Tech game last year. He was a two-way player at Springdale High School, played quarterback and defensive back. I think he's a guy that you're seeing get some reps, but those reps might be temporary, like we talked about with a guy like Julian Neal, super talented, came in late, and nothing against Landon Phipps, but at the end of the day, this DB room is very deep, and there's a lot of talent to contend with.
Yeah, walk on as well. So I'm there with the points that I said before. I think it's a good thing to see him up in the depth chart like that in the practice because you got guys that are getting some good reps with some good people. That way, you build your depth that way, right? You're not just putting them on practice squad to be a practice dummy. You go out there and they're actually supposed to do something, and I think that's good for the team as a whole. But like you said, when we get to Julian Neal, I think that's going to definitely pop him out. I don't plan on seeing him a whole lot this season unless they just destroy some people.
Right. And so, good segue there as we jump into Julian Neal, a guy that transferred in late, played at Fresno State. Originally I think was going to go to Stanford, but then decided to come to Arkansas. Redshirt senior, 6'2", 208. At Fresno State last year as a redshirt junior, started 4 games, played in all 12, 35 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, and 6 pass breakups. Guy that contributed a lot as a redshirt sophomore, saw action in 11 games, 9 tackles, 1 tackle, including half tackle for loss. 3-star recruit out of high school. And so he's a guy that, there's a lot of expectation out of him coming in. He came in late. I think he's been dealing with a little bit of injury problems and health. But like we said, as he gets healthy, gets integrated into this defense, kind of picks things up, you'll see him kind of start, I think, to rise through the depth chart. And if not start, but have get a lot of playing time and a lot of snaps under his belt.
Yeah, I think I have total faith in this dude. I think he's probably going to start. He may not start against Alabama A&M, but he's definitely going to play. And if he outplays whoever's in front of him, he's definitely going to be starting against A-State and then going forward. He's got a lot of talent, right? Yeah. You don't come out of Fresno State as a 4-star transfer and not have a lot of transfer. I mean, like, he came out of Fresno State and had a 4-star transfer designation. Like, you look at some of the guys that are in the portal, a lot of them who have those 4 stars, like, you're like, or a lot of them that have 3 stars, you're like, these guys were good. Like, why aren't they, rated higher? They have a totally different rating system whenever it comes to that. And it's a lot harder. Like, you don't see any 5-star guys come out of the portal. They're all 4 stars. So 4-star is basically the 5-star of the transfer portal.
Exactly.
So I'm excited to see him. I'm really excited to see how that whole position battle shakes out and who lands where, because there's just a lot of pieces, and you got a different picture with each different piece. So it's going to be exciting to see what they come out with against Alabama A&M that first week.
Yeah. And so before we jump into these last few guys, we'll jump over the comments real quick. Transplant Texan, going back a little bit, mentioned, he said this offense must develop some type of running game. If they rely solely on the quick strike offense, the strikes must be successfully end up in the end zone, and then the best defense ineffective without offensive scoring. So if our defense is successful, it doesn't matter, to your point, if we can't score, we can't get in the red zone and have success. Angel says our average power do what?
They're going to have a run game, by the way.
Yeah. Go back and listen to that running back preview we did. We're a little bit loaded there. I mean, if you've been seeing the buzz out of camp with Mike Washington, just get ready. But Angel says the average power unit of offenses in our schedule is 77.6. That's some good offensive teams, the highest in college football. Mm-hmm. So we're going to need a good defense. And, kind of Transplant Texan mentioned, all the more reason why we got to put points on the board when our offense is on the field. This defense will have their hands full stopping opponents to begin with the tough offenses we play. But for success, both sides of the ball will need to pull their own weight. 100%, I agree. Angel says Bobby P. I remember outscoring other teams. Points are important. But, we're going to have to see the defense help out a little bit. Transplant Texan said the Bobby P of old isn't running the whole show this time around. He's a little bit more dependent on T-Will's defense to hold the opponent down, and Bobby P must have his offense firing on all cylinders this season. So I agree. He's in control of the offense, and it's got to be one of those things where we've talked about before where keep your foot on the gas, don't let off. Transplant Texan kind of follows that up by saying Mr. Cautious Cold Beer is running the show. He'll need to step out of the way and let Bobby play to win with his offense. And if those pieces he's put together can do it, then success. So,
yeah, which I don't think Sam puts his foot in there a lot. To be honest with you, to pull a Samism. To be honest with you, I don't think he puts it. I don't think he stops it a whole lot. Now, there are times where I think he tells them to hold off a little bit earlier than what they need to
right.
in wins. But those are usually the wins, right? I don't think in those one-score games, the ones that we're trying to, do really well in, I think I don't think he gets in Bobby's way at all. I don't think he gets in anybody's way at all. I think there's sometimes where he won't call a timeout or will call a timeout or make stupid decisions that way. And we've, criticized him, to forever about it. But as far as like play calling and decisions like that, I don't think he does a lot.
Right. It's the matter of, like you said, those times where, it's like we talked about. Sam's a good old boy and doesn't necessarily want to be one of those guys that runs up the score type of situation. But you got to look at where you're at now, the pressure that's on you. As they've said it before, run it up, Herman. Let's go. You've got to show that like you're not afraid to, continue to put the foot on the gas, and that's in terms of not telling Bobby just to be like, hey, just run the ball. Let's run the clock out. Yes, running the clock's important. But let's continue to score. If you happen to run the clock and you can score as well, great. Double, things like that. So Angel says the old school Bobby P comes on the field. He wants to outscore you 100%. That's the mentality he has. Fast, high scoring. And, hopefully we see a lot of that this year. And that this defense, especially the secondary we're talking about, helps Arkansas. And from time to time we'll get the ball back for this defense, so or for the offense, if you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what was it? It was a Hawgs Plus thing, and they had a little interview with Bobby, and they were talking about that Colby Hamilton and Ryan Mallett play at the end of the half against LSU. And they're like, well, why didn't you kneel? He's like, I hate kneeling. Like, if you go out there and run a play, you might as well run a play.
Right.
And I like that mentality, right?
Well, and even with that clip too, it's like if you watch that clip, there, you even have the announcers of the game saying, "All right, they're going to run out there,
right.
Kneel it down," and they're like, "Wait a minute, Ryan Mallett's coming out. They're going to run a play," and so
yeah, and I think you need to have that kind of mentality. This is like I said for what's his name, Jaheim Singletary. Jaheim Singletary. This is a put up or shut up year for Sam Pittman, right?
Yeah.
If you're not out there, doing everything you can to win and take the wins like you were supposed to, then why are you even out there, right?
Yeah. And my mentality this year, I want to win games, and not to extent to where it's super bad, but in terms of like running up the score and like keeping your foot on the gas. Throw that sportsmanship respect type out of the window. Like you're under pressure. These close games over the years have sometimes come back to bite you if you're like, all right, we got the lead, let's kind of just try to milk it out and get the win. No, let's go out there, continue to put up points, and get the job done.
And I'll tell you why that's kind of important is because that mentality carries over to whenever you have tough games.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're out there and you're like, oh, we'll slow it down, take it easy on you. Whenever you go out and play someone that's going to hit you in the mouth, you're not ready to, punch at them.
Right.
That makes sense. You don't have that dog mentality. And that's kind of, I feel like that's a little bit what they've missed in the last few years. It's not like they go out there and they don't fight. I'm not saying that. They fought a lot last year. And the only time that I've ever seen them really quit is whenever they played LSU. Other than that, they either got beat or they beat. There was no quit in them except for that LSU game. So,
yeah. As we jump over and finish these last few guys here, going to be guys kind of like we talked about last week, going to be young developmental guys that they may get some special teams look, or as we talked about, could be some good practice squad guys. That starts with Taj Overton, freshman from Mobile, Alabama, 6'2", 179, consensus 3-star. He was nicknamed Hammer Time and then chose Arkansas over Oklahoma State, Florida State, Missouri, Ole Miss, UCF, among others. 28 rated the number 23 overall prospect in Alabama. Number 41 safety in the class of 2025. So a guy that's got some talent, but is probably going to redshirt or see limited action this season.
Yeah, not much to say, right? But I don't think we'll see him much. Maybe not even on special teams. That you got a lot of guys out there right now that are doing work and getting that practice recognition in those deeps, those 3 deeps that come out of the fall camp. So it's going to be a little hard for any of these guys to really get onto the field unless there's some injuries, and we'll, Tupac now Hammer Time. That's good. That's really good stuff. I don't know the comment from Angel. That's what I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You got Colby and Shaq on the team, and now you got some 90s rappers. Like, you're hitting the 90s all over the place on this team.
Talk about all name squad.
Right.
So as we continue, another freshman that's a redshirt freshman this season, Jaden Allen, 5'10", 166, 3-star prospect. Shows Arkansas over Alabama, LSU, Michigan State, Tennessee, Texas, some of those bigger schools. Another guy, he's a redshirt freshman, so he's redshirted 1 year. Going to continue to develop, maybe see him in the next year or so. Yeah,
he's one of the ones that I'm a little bit surprised to not see his name quite a bit because he wasn't a 4-star, but he was a borderline 4-star guy. Mm-hmm. Out of that 2023 class, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. So that it's a little surprising not to see not to hear from him quite a bit. But I don't know. There's always hope. Same time, he's also quite a bit smaller than everybody else. 5'10", 166. So
Yeah.
He's one that I think we'll hear hear his name more as time goes on. Throughout the next couple of years, unless he transfers. But like you said, this year I don't know. I haven't heard a lot about him, so probably not going to see a lot of him.
Yeah. Continue on. Jabray Shaw, redshirt sophomore, 5'10", 189, out of Pine Bluff. Redshirted his initial season in 2023. Made his collegiate debut last year in the season opening win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Joined Arkansas as a preferred walk-on, another one of those walk-on guys that, I mean, if you're talking about at 5'10", 189, a little on the shorter side, but, still, like Austin said, you fudge the numbers a little bit. He's what you would normally see probably out of a lot of these other DBs. So probably another season where, saw action in Arkansas Pine Bluff game last year, probably could see some action in Alabama A&M this year, that type of situation for Jabray Shaw.
Yeah, and I think that was such a cool thing to see, have him go out there against Pine Bluff and, him being from there. But yeah, just another walk-on guy that, probably won't see the field a whole lot unless there is that type of, just beat down like we had last year against UAPB. But yeah, not a whole lot to say.
Yeah. Rounding out this defensive back room, you have Braylon Watson, redshirt junior, 6'2", 208, out of Malvern. Joined Arkansas as a preferred walk-on. Redshirted his first season. Didn't see any action last year or in 2023. Another situation like we talked about, depth guy that wants to be a Razorback, preferred walk-on, practice squad type player, could see action in some of these big blowout games if we have those. So
yeah, and Malvern, there was another guy that was actually good for Malvern that the last few years, I think. But having a small school like that, getting to come up here and be a walk-on, that's kind of like everything for these guys. And that's kind of the sucky part about this house settlement and how there's not going to be any true walk-ons anymore around the country. I mean, Arkansas is going to have at least one because they're going to keep that tradition going on for Brandon Burlsworth. But yeah, like not a whole lot to say about him. I think he's going to be a pretty good practice squad guy. A little bit of depth there, and then maybe in a year or two he can pull a Hudson Clark. That's what every one of these guys are hoping for. So,
right. So that wraps up the Arkansas defensive backs. A lot of depth there, a lot of talent that, I can't wait to see what this defense looks like in the back end anyway. Like we said, if the defensive line can kind of just do their job, can hold it together, let the linebackers and the secondary do their jobs, it could be quite the interesting season for this Arkansas defense as they try to help this Arkansas offense this season kind of work together in tandem there. It's like you mentioned, it would be a great title for an article last week. Like Hobbs mentioned last week, it's going to be what do the 10s do? Talon and Xavier Sorey. Those are going to be two key pieces to watch this season. And so we'll get ready to wrap up next week. We'll dive into the special teams. We'll have Hobbs, let him talk about his kickers that he loves. Update, no show on Sunday. I'll be traveling, so we'll be back next Thursday. But to kind of round out score update, Arkansas did fall to Iowa 3-2. So they tried to push for that comeback, got close, but didn't get there. They'll be back in action on Sunday as they face number 2 Notre Dame coming to town. So maybe they can bounce back there. But as we kind of get ready to wrap up, anything else from you, Austin?
No, sir, man. I'm just one step closer to football season.
Exactly. Transplant Texas said good information and breakdown. Appreciate that's what we go for. Appreciate. Thank you for the safe travels. Yep, I'll be traveling for work, so we'll be back in time and be back in our regularly scheduled show on Thursday. But as we get to wrap up, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. You can find us all over the socials: Facebook, Instagram, X, wherever you want to do your scrolling at. We're on those apps. I know we ran a little long tonight, probably one of our longer ones, but there was that kind of lets you know what kind of depth that the secondary has. A lot of guys to talk about. So got through that. Excited for it. We're going to wrap up here. Nothing else from us. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll catch you back here next Thursday. From Austin, myself, we're going to get out of here. Again, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.